That guy must be the new farmhand they hired to fix up Blackwood Ranch, Harper murmured to herself, watching from the cafe window as the man in paint-stained clothes walked slowly through the town square. She had no idea that same man, just hours earlier, had hung up on his partner who was pressing him about a $12 million deal. "Ethan, you need to sign these papers today. The buyers are impatient and we can't lose this deal." Marcus's metallic voice echoed through the speakerphone as Ethan Blackwood drove along the dusty roads of Harmony Springs. It had been over a decade since the businessman had set foot on that land. He was returning only for a formality, to sell Blackwood Ranch, his grandmother's inheritance, and turn it into a luxury resort. "Understood, Marcus. I'll take care of it today," he replied coldly. But something in his voice trembled when he saw the peeling wooden gate of the property that was now his. The car stopped in front of the colonial house. The whitewashed walls and moss-covered tiles seemed smaller than in his memories. The windows creaked in the wind, emitting a familiar sound that made his chest tighten without warning. Ethan walked to the porch, his hands trembling as he touched the rusty key. The door groaned, releasing an aroma of damp wood mixed with something sweet that awakened dormant memories. "Grandma Eleanor," he murmured softly, stepping onto the floorboards where he knew every loose plank. The furniture was covered by white sheets like ghosts of a lost time. In his grandmother's room on the rosewood dresser, a photo frame held a yellowed picture, him at 8 years old, grinning toothlessly beside Grandma Eleanor in the backyard. Both held a basket of blueberries and her face radiated unconditional love. With trembling hands, he opened the dresser drawer. Among old papers, he found a cotton handkerchief with the initials EB, embroidered in blue thread. The fabric still held a faint lavender scent, the same one she wore on Sundays. He brought the handkerchief to his chest and for the first time in years, felt his eyes well up. The feared businessman in the New York City real estate market was just an orphaned grandson holding the memory of the one who had loved him most. His phone rang again. Marcus, impatient. "I need a few more days," Ethan said, looking out the window at the orchard where he used to run barefoot. "What do you mean? This is business, not family therapy." "Just a few days, Marcus." Ethan hung up and went down to the kitchen. In a dusty cabinet, he found forgotten work clothes, worn cotton pants, a frayed flannel shirt, and boots covered in dry dirt. Without thinking, he swapped his $3,000 Italian suit for the simple clothes. In the cracked mirror, he barely recognized himself. His unshaven beard and loose clothes transformed him into any regular farm worker. For the first time in years, he smiled genuinely. He spent the afternoon painting the peeling walls, each brushstroke a rediscovery. As he worked, he felt closer to his grandmother than at any formal farewell ceremony. As the sun began to set, dirty with paint and sweat, he walked into town in search of food. He wanted to avoid places where he might be recognized, so he went straight to the small cafe in the town square. "Good afternoon," the young woman with tied-back brown hair said, looking up from the counter. "What can I get you?" Harper noticed the worn clothes, the calloused hands from dry paint, the unshaven beard. He was certainly one of the workers hired to renovate the abandoned ranch. "A coffee and..." He looked at a covered dish. "What's that?" "Grandma's apple pie, a secret recipe kept under lock and key," she replied proudly, uncovering the dish. The sweet aroma instantly transported Ethan back to his childhood. It was the exact same smell from the kitchen at Blackwood Ranch. "It smells like my grandma's pie, too," he murmured without thinking. "Then you'll love it." She cut a generous slice. "I'm Harper, by the way." "Ethan," he extended his paint-stained hand. She shook it without hesitation, treating him as she would any local worker. The simple contact, without ulterior motives, sent an electric current through his arm. It had been so long since someone saw him simply as a regular person. "You must be working at Blackwood Ranch, right?" Harper asked as he savored the pie. "I heard they hired people to fix up the place before selling it." Ethan almost choked, but managed to maintain his composure. "Yeah, something like that," he replied vaguely, avoiding a direct lie. "It's a shame they're selling it to become a resort. That place has so much history. Grandma Eleanor was such a dear lady." Ethan's heart quickened at hearing his grandmother's name on her lips. "You knew her?" "Of course, she always used to come here for coffee. She said my pie reminded her of what she made in her youth." Harper smiled fondly. "I miss her." When he got up to pay, Harper shook her head. The first slice is on the house, local tradition for an honest worker. Ethan left the cafe with a lighter heart but also more confused. Harper would stay awake that night, thinking about the sad-eyed farmhand who spoke of his grandmother as if he had known her intimately. Neither of them imagined that the biggest misunderstanding of their lives had just begun. If you're enjoying this story, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where you're watching from. This helps a lot to keep bringing stories like this to you. The next morning, Ethan woke up to the rooster's crow he hadn't heard in 15 years. For a moment, he forgot where he was. There was no air conditioning or traffic noise, just the golden light of the countryside filtering through the wooden windows. His phone vibrated persistently. 17 missed calls from Marcus. Ethan sighed and answered. Finally, the resort guys are talking about backing out of the deal if there's no decision today. His partner's voice sounded exasperated. Let them back out, Ethan replied, surprising himself. What? That's $12 million, Ethan. I know how much it is, Marcus, but I need more time. Time for what? It's an old house in the middle of nowhere. Ethan hung up without responding. He put on his work clothes and went down to the kitchen. He brewed coffee in the enamel pot, just like his grandmother used to. The bitter taste brought back more memories. Around 10 in the morning, he heard a motorcycle approaching. A young man in a blue uniform parked in front of the house. Delivery for Blackwood Ranch, the young man said. I didn't order anything. The order was placed for the farmhand who's renovating the house. The delivery driver smiled. The lady from the cafe sent it. Ethan opened the package and found still warm apple pie, accompanied by a small note. To give you energy for your work. Thank you for taking such good care of Grandma Eleanor's house. Harper. His heart raced. How had she noticed the care with which he treated the property? And why did she care about a worker she had known for only a day? He decided to go to the cafe to thank her. When he arrived, Harper was serving an elderly woman who was complaining about the prices. $3 for a coffee? Back in my day, it was 50 cents. Mrs. Miller, you know I have the best prices in town, Harper replied with infinite patience. The old woman grumbled and huffed out. Harper sighed and noticed Ethan at the door. Hi, did you get the pie? I did. Thank you, but you didn't have to. He approached. How did you know I'm taking care of the house? I rode by on my bike last night and saw a light on. This morning I saw smoke from the chimney. She smiled. It's been years since anyone lit the fireplace. Grandma Eleanor would be happy. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. She always said the house had a soul of its own, that it needed to be lived in so it wouldn't die of sadness. Harper continued. And you believe that? I believe places hold memories, and that some people know how to see that. She looked at him intensely. You must have grown up in the country, didn't you? Why do you say that? City people step on the dirt like it's concrete. You step like someone who knows every grain of sand. Harper rested her elbows on the counter. Where are you from? Ethan hesitated. Lying was becoming difficult. From far away. Very far away. And will you be staying long in Harmony Springs? I don't know yet. It depends on the work. Well, as long as you're here, I promise to keep the pie stock well supplied. She winked mischievously. A customer entered, interrupting their conversation. Ethan said goodbye. I need to go back. Thanks for the pie. You're welcome. See you, Ethan. Back at the ranch, he found a black car at the entrance. His stomach dropped. It was Marcus, accompanied by two men in suits, the representatives of the buying group. Ethan, we need to talk. Now. His partner approached with a stern expression. The men wanted to see the property and finalize the last details. Ethan felt obliged to show them the ranch, trying to hide his discomfort at seeing them evaluate with mercenary eyes every corner consecrated by his childhood. Excellent location, one of them said. And this colonial house will be demolished? No, Ethan replied faster than he intended. Everyone looked at him in surprise. I mean, it's part of its historic charm. The buyers exchanged glances. Marcus glared at him. After tense negotiations, the men left with the promise of a definitive answer within 48 hours. Marcus stayed. What's happening to you? He asked when they were alone. Nothing. I just want to be sure of the decision. Ethan, you're acting like a different person. Since when do you care about historic charm? Ethan looked at the house where his grandmother had spent her entire life, where he himself had been happy before discovering that the world exacted a high price for happiness. Maybe it's time to find out who I really am, Marcus. His partner stared at him as if he were looking at a stranger, and perhaps he was. The next 2 days passed like a strange dream for Ethan. In the mornings, he painted the ranch walls with hands that once signed million-dollar contracts. In the afternoons, he walked to Harper's cafe, where he sat at a corner table and watched her work. Harper had created a silent routine around him. She always saved him a slice of apple pie, served his coffee black, exactly how he liked it, and told small stories about the regular customers while cleaning nearby tables. "Did you see Mr. Davies today?" she asked on Thursday afternoon, pointing to a man in a straw hat leaving the cafe. He worked 40 years at the Blackwood Ranch. He retired when the last heir left for the big city. Ethan's heart raced. The Blackwoods? The family that owned Blackwood Ranch. Important people around here back then. Harper sat in the chair next to him. Grandma Eleanor was the matriarch. A strong woman, she raised her grandson alone after his parents died in an accident. What happened to the grandson? Ethan Blackwood. He became a businessman in New York City, built a real estate empire, she sighed. But he never came back, not even for his grandmother's funeral. The sentence hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. He lowered his eyes, pretending to stir his sugar. "People judge a lot around here," he murmured. "I'm not judging." Harper shook her head. "I just think it's sad. Grandma Eleanor died talking about him. She said he would come home one day. What if he does come back someday? I hope it's to stay." She smiled melancholically. "This town needs people who truly love it, not just see it as a business opportunity." Ethan wanted to confess everything at that moment. Tell her who he was, why it had taken him so long to return, explain that he was there precisely because he felt the same way she did. But the words caught in his throat. On Friday morning, as he painted the front fence, he saw Harper approaching on a bicycle. She wore a simple blue cotton dress and carried a basket on the back. "Good morning, Ethan," she waved cheerfully. "Good morning. Is the cafe closed?" "I took a little break for myself." She got off her bike. "I came to bring lunch. I thought you might be hungry." She opened the basket, revealing lunch containers with rice, beans, stewed meat, and savory sides. The aroma made Ethan's stomach audibly rumble. "Harper, you don't have to." "Of course I do," she interrupted. "It's the least I can do for someone who's taking such good care of the house." They sat on the porch, sharing the food in comfortable silence. Ethan watched Harper chew slowly, looking at the landscape with genuine admiration. "What a beautiful place," she sighed. "Grandma Eleanor brought me here once, when I was a child. She said this porch was her favorite spot in the whole world." "Why?" "Because from here she saw everything she loved. The orchard where her grandson played, the garden she planted herself, the mountains that never changed their place." Harper smiled. "And because it was on this porch that she met her husband. He came here to deliver an order 60 years ago." Ethan swallowed hard. He vaguely remembered the story of his grandfather, who died when he was 5. "She told me that true love grows slowly like a good plant. It can't be forced, it can't be a lie. It either grows strong or it doesn't grow at all." Harper looked at him directly. "Do you believe that?" The question echoed in the air as both a challenge and a confession. Ethan knew Harper wasn't just talking about her grandparents' story. I never had time to think about that," he replied honestly. "And now? Here, away from the rush?" Ethan looked at her sitting on the same porch where his grandmother had fallen in love decades earlier. The afternoon light gilded Harper's hair, and her eyes shone with a curiosity he hadn't seen in anyone for years. "Now I'm starting to understand some things," he said softly. Ethan's phone rang, breaking the spell of the moment. It was Marcus. "Excuse me," he said, stepping away to answer. "Ethan, the deadline is today at 6 p.m. What do you want me to tell the buyers?" Ethan looked at Harper, who was collecting the dishes from the basket, humming softly. He looked at the half-painted house, at the orchard where he had climbed blueberry bushes, at the mountains that had witnessed his entire childhood. "Tell them I need another week." "A week? Ethan, they'll pull out." "Then let them." He hung up the phone and returned to Harper, who was watching him with concern. Trouble at work? She asked. Nothing I can't handle, he lied, feeling the weight of the charade grow in his chest. But when Harper smiled and lightly touched his hand, Ethan knew he was losing the battle against his own feelings. On Saturday morning, Ethan woke up to voices in the kitchen. He went downstairs and found Harper preparing coffee, accompanied by a robust gray-haired woman. "Good morning, sleepyhead," Harper smiled. "This is Norma, my neighbor." She brought fresh bread. The woman scrutinized Ethan from head to toe with investigative eyes. "So you're the mysterious farmhand," she said, extending a calloused hand. "I'm Norma Davies. I've lived here for 50 years and know everyone in town." "Ethan." He shook her hand, feeling the woman's strength. "Strange. You remind me of someone." Norma frowned. "Those eyes. That way you tilt your head. I've seen it somewhere before." Ethan's heart raced, but Harper laughed. "Norma thinks everyone looks like someone. Last week she said the new baker looked just like Elvis Presley." "I'm not kidding, dear," the old woman insisted. "Especially when he smiles sideways like that." Ethan forced a different smile, trying to disguise any resemblance to old photos that might exist in town. "Must just be an impression," he said. "I'm from very far away." Norma didn't seem convinced, but changed the subject when Harper served coffee with the warm bread. "Harper, you need to be careful with the gossip in town," the old woman said quietly, but Ethan heard perfectly. "What gossip?" "Vanessa Fairchild is spreading rumors that you're getting too close to an unknown man. Says it's not proper for a single lady." Harper blushed slightly. "Vanessa only says that because she's jealous of the business at my cafe. Ever since I started making Grandma's pies, she's lost customers." "Could be," Norma sighed. "But you know how this town is. Tongues are sharp." Ethan felt guilty. His presence was causing trouble for Harper, and she didn't even know who he really was. "Maybe I should keep my distance," he said. "I don't want to hurt anyone's reputation." "Nonsense." Harper stood up firmly. "I won't let gossip change my life. You're my friend, Ethan, and good friends are rare." The word friend sounded strange to Ethan. It had been so long since he had a relationship without commercial or political interest. After Norma left, Harper showed Ethan the back of the property, where a small ruined chapel stood. "Grandma Eleanor got married here," she recounted, touching the moss-covered stones. "She dreamed of restoring this place, but she never had the resources." "What if someone restored it?" Ethan asked, already mentally calculating the costs. "It would be a miracle," Harper smiled sadly. "But who would do it? Her grandson only thinks about money, from what I hear." The indirect criticism hurt more than Ethan expected. Had he really become just the greedy businessman the town imagined? "Maybe he has changed," he murmured. "Rich people don't change, Ethan. They just get richer." Harper shook her head. "My mother worked for people like that. They promised the world, but only thought of their own profit." That afternoon, as Harper returned to the cafe, Ethan stayed alone in the chapel. He took his grandmother's handkerchief from his pocket. He had started carrying it with him everywhere, and whispered, "Grandma, what do I do? How do I tell her who I am without losing everything we've built?" The wind rustled the surrounding trees, as if nature itself whispered an answer he couldn't decipher. Late that afternoon, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Ethan Blackwood?" The voice was feminine, too sweet to be sincere. "Who's calling?" "Vanessa Fairchild. You might not remember me, but we met years ago in New York City at a charity event." Ethan vaguely remembered. An exuberant woman, owner of a bakery, who had tried to convince him to invest in her business. "What do you want, Vanessa?" "I'm in Harmony Springs. I heard you came back to sort out inheritance matters. I thought we could talk about business opportunities in the area." "How did you know I was here?" "Harmony Springs is a small town, dear. Especially when a famous businessman shows up disguised as a farmhand." Ethan's blood ran cold. Vanessa knew. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do," she chuckled. "And I imagine sweet Harper doesn't know either, does she? It would be a shame if she found out the wrong way." The veiled threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. "What do you want, Vanessa?" "A conversation. Tomorrow, 8 p.m., at my hotel. I have a proposal that might interest both of us." The call ended, leaving Ethan certain that his charade was about to collapse. Sunday passed slow as dripping honey. Ethan tried to concentrate on painting the living room, but his thoughts constantly returned to Vanessa's call. With each brushstroke, he imagined how Harper would react upon discovering the truth. The disappointment in her eyes would be worse than any financial loss. Around 5 in the afternoon, he decided to go to the cafe. He needed to see Harper even if he didn't quite know what to say. He found her tidying up chairs, getting ready to close. "Ethan," her face lit up. "I was just thinking about you. How was your workday?" "Quiet," he lied, watching her carefully fold the aprons. "And yours?" "Busy. Sundays always have more people." She paused, looking at him attentively. "Are you okay? You seem worried." Harper's intuition surprised him. She had known him for only a few days, but she could already read his expressions. "Just tired," he forced a smile. "How about dinner with me?" she suggested spontaneously. "I can cook something simple at my place. You've been working so hard, you deserve a decent meal." The invitation warmed Ethan's chest, but it also increased his guilt. How could he accept so much kindness while maintaining such a big lie? "I don't want to be a bother." "No bother at all." Harper grabbed her bag. "I'll make a chicken and herb risotto from the garden. My mother's recipe." Harper's house was 2 blocks from the cafe. It was small, painted light yellow, with a porch full of plants. The interior was simple but cozy. Well-kept antique furniture, patterned cotton curtains, and family photographs on the walls. "Excuse the simplicity," she said, tying an apron around her waist. "It's perfect," Ethan replied sincerely. "It's been a long time since I felt so at home." As Harper cooked, he looked at the photos. A woman resembling her appeared in several, always smiling. "Your mother?" he asked. "She was. She died 3 years ago, cancer." Harper stirred the risotto without looking at him. "She worked as a housekeeper for a wealthy family in Charlotte. She sent almost her entire salary to me. I'm sorry. She always said rich and poor bleed the same, but only the poor know the value of blood." Harper finally faced him. "That's why I value simple people like you. You know the weight of things." Every word was like a dagger to Ethan's conscience. He was exactly in the category of people Harper's mother had criticized. Dinner proceeded with light conversation about the town, family recipes, and small but genuine dreams. Harper said she wanted to expand the cafe, maybe offer cooking classes to the young women in the area. "What about you?" she asked. "Do you have dreams beyond manual labor?" Ethan almost laughed at the irony. His dreams had completely changed in 1 week. "Lately, I've been thinking about permanence," he said carefully. "About finding a place to put down roots. Would Harmony Springs be a good place?" "It would be perfect." Harper's eyes sparkled, and for the first time, Ethan was sure she felt something for him too. At 8 o'clock sharp, he was in the lobby of Harmony Springs' only hotel. Vanessa came down wearing an outfit too expensive for the local simplicity. Her heels echoed on the ceramic floor like a hammer hitting a coffin. "Ethan," she approached with a calculated smile. "What a pleasure to see you again. Let's get straight to the point, Vanessa. What do you want?" "How rude," she feigned offense. "Let's go to the bar and talk like civilized people." In the hotel's small bar, Vanessa ordered champagne. "Ethan, just water." "You know, I was curious when I heard you were here disguised as a worker," she began. "You must have very special reasons for this kind of performance. You still haven't said what you want." "A partnership," she was direct. "I want to invest in Blackwood Ranch. Instead of selling it to that vulgar resort, we can create something exclusive. A gourmet bakery, events for Charlotte's elite. What if I refuse? It would be sad if Sweet Harper discovered that her Prince Charming is actually a millionaire businessman who deceived her." Vanessa smiled maliciously. "Especially in a public way. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering a business opportunity. The blackmail is just a bonus." Ethan stood up, throwing some bills on the table. "Think carefully, dear," Vanessa said as he walked away. "Until Tuesday. After that, I can't guarantee I'll be able to control my tendency for gossip." Walking through the dark streets back to the ranch, Ethan felt the weight of his grandmother's handkerchief in his pocket. The time had come to choose: maintain the lie and accept the blackmail, or confess everything to Harper and face the consequences. For the first time in his business life, Ethan Blackwood didn't know what decision to make. Monday dawned gray, with heavy clouds announcing rain. Ethan woke up with the feeling that time was running out. He had until Tuesday to decide the fate of everything he had built with Harper. He went down to the kitchen and found a surprise. She was there, preparing breakfast. "Good morning, sleepyhead." She smiled, but there was something different in her eyes. "I brought sweetbread and blueberry jam." "How did you get in?" he asked, still sleepy. "The door was open. I thought you had left early." She served the coffee. "Ethan, I need to tell you something." His heart raced. Had Vanessa already carried out her threat? "Last night after you left, a woman showed up at the cafe," Harper continued. "Vanessa Fairchild, she said she knows you." Ethan almost dropped his cup. What did she want? To ask strange questions about you. Where you came from. How long you've been here, if you talked about family. Harper looked at him intensely. "Ethan, who is this woman? And why does she have so much interest in a farm worker?" The question hung in the air as both an accusation and a plea. Ethan saw in Harper's eyes that she was starting to suspect something. "It's complicated," he murmured. "Complicated how?" She approached. "Ethan, ever since you arrived, I feel like there's something you're not telling me. And now this woman shows up asking questions." "Harper, You what?" Her voice grew firmer. "Do you have a wife? Are you running from something? Are you married?" "No, none of that." "Then what is it?" Ethan stood up and walked to the window. The rain had started to fall, creating curtains of water between him and the outside world. "If I told you the truth, you'd hate me." "Why would I hate you?" "Because I lied to you from day one." Harper was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "Everyone has secrets, Ethan. But lies hurt." He turned to face Harper, seeing the vulnerability behind the strength she always showed. "You told me rich people don't change," he said. "What if I told you one of them is trying to change? It would depend on why they want to change. What if it's for love?" Harper's eyes filled with tears that she tried to hide. "Ethan, stop speaking in riddles. Be honest with me. For the love you say you feel." He took his grandmother's handkerchief from his pocket, looking at the embroidered initials. "My grandmother's name was Eleanor Blackwood." The revelation hit like a lightning bolt. Harper recoiled, bringing a hand to her mouth. "No," she whispered. "I'm Ethan Blackwood. The grandson who never came back, the businessman who only thinks about money, the heir who abandoned his grandmother to die alone." The words came out like a confession in court. "I came here to sell the ranch and turn it into a luxury resort." Harper stared at him as if seeing a ghost. You're... She shook her head. "All this time, pretending to be a worker." "I wasn't pretending to be a worker. I was trying to remember who I was before I became a businessman." "You fooled me." Her voice rose. "You let me talk about your family, your grandmother, about you, knowing I didn't know anything. Harper, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" Tears streamed down her face. "How you played with me. How you laughed at my stories about the ungrateful grandson who never came back. I never laughed at you. Every word you said made me realize the terrible man I had become. And now? Are you still going to sell the ranch? Are you going to turn all this into a playground for the rich?" Ethan approached, but she recoiled. "I don't know what I'm going to do anymore. You changed everything, Harper. You changed how I see this land, how I see myself." Pretty words. She grabbed her purse with trembling hands. "But people like you are experts at pretty words." "Harper, wait. No, I need to process this. I need to understand how I was so naive." She walked towards the door, stopping in the doorway. "You know what hurts me the most?" she said without turning around. "It's not that you're rich. It's that you let me believe there was someone simple and true in this world." The door closed behind her, leaving Ethan alone with the echo of her words and the weight of a truth that had come too late. The news spread through Harmony Springs like wildfire. On Tuesday morning, Ethan woke up to the sound of voices in front of the ranch. Through the window, he saw a small group of residents pointing at the house and talking in agitated tones. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Local journalists, curious onlookers, and even some old acquaintances from New York City who had discovered where he was. Ethan turned off his phone and locked himself in the house. Around 10 in the morning, someone knocked on the door. Through the window pane, he saw Norma with a serious expression on her face. "Ethan Blackwood," she said when he opened the door. "Now I understand why you seemed familiar. Norma, I can explain." "You don't need to explain anything to me, young man." She entered without ceremony. "I want to know how you're feeling." The unexpected kindness disarmed him. "Confused. Regretful. Lost," he replied honestly. "And Harper? She doesn't want to see me anymore. And she has every right." Norma sat at the kitchen table observing the half-painted walls. "Your grandmother talked about you a lot in her last years," she said. "Not with anger, with longing. I should have come back sooner." "You should have. But you came back now. The question is, for what?" Ethan sat before her feeling like a child being reprimanded. "I came to sell the ranch. But now, I don't know anymore." "And Harper? What do you feel for her?" "More than I imagined it was possible to feel for someone." The confession came out unfiltered. "But I messed everything up. By lying to her. By lying to myself." Ethan sighed. "I thought I could live a fantasy for a few days. Be someone I'm not." "And who are you, Ethan?" The simple question hit him hard. He had been questioning it for weeks. "I don't know anymore, Norma. I spent so many years building an empire that I forgot to build a life. Then it's time to decide what life you want to build now." She stood to leave but stopped at the door. "Harper is hurting, young man. Not just because of the lie. She truly fell for you. That doesn't happen every day." After Norma left, Ethan tried to concentrate on painting, but it was useless. Every brushstroke reminded him of Harper, of how she had praised his care for the house, of how she had believed every word he said. Around 2 in the afternoon, a familiar car parked in front of the house. Marcus got out, accompanied by the resort representatives, all with irritated expressions. "Ethan," his partner shouted before even reaching the door. "What kind of circus is this? The whole town is saying you've turned into a farmhand." "I haven't turned into a farmhand, Marcus. I just remembered how to be a person." "A person?" One of the buyers laughed disdainfully. "You're a businessman, not a gardener. Let's finish this game and sign the papers." "I'm not signing anything." "What do you mean?" Marcus turned red. "Ethan, have you lost your mind?" "Quite the opposite. I think I've found it." Ethan looked at the 3 men in suits. So similar to what he himself had been. Ambiguous, pragmatic, incapable of seeing value in anything that couldn't be monetized. "The ranch is not for sale." "But the contract—" "I haven't signed anything. You have until the end of the day to get off my property." The buyers huffed out. Marcus stayed behind. "Ethan, you're making a $12 million mistake." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make." "And what are you going to do with this land?" "Become a farmer?" Ethan looked out the window, seeing the mountains that had witnessed his childhood, the orchard where his grandmother had taught him to climb trees, the porch where he had rediscovered the taste of simple coffee. "I'm going to do something I should have done a long time ago, Marcus. I'm going to honor my grandmother's memory." "And the company?" "The company will continue, but without me." Marcus stared at him as if he were looking at a madman. "You're throwing your life away because of a woman who doesn't even want to see you anymore." "I'm not throwing my life away." Ethan smiled for the first time in days. "I'm trying to find it." When he was alone again, Ethan went up to his grandmother's room and took the embroidered handkerchief. The initials EB seemed to shine in the afternoon light. "Grandma," he whispered, "help me fix this. Help me be the man you raised, not the one I became." Outside, the town of Harmony Springs continued its routine, but Ethan knew nothing would ever be the same. He had burned bridges with the past. Now he needed to build a future, even without knowing if Harper would be a part of it. The only certainty he had was that he wouldn't leave there again without fighting for what truly mattered. Ethan spent 3 days without seeing Harper. The town square cafe became forbidden territory, and he shopped at the small market on the other side of town, where the clerk treated him with the respectful curiosity reserved for local celebrities. On Thursday morning, he decided to visit the only place that still brought him peace, the cemetery where his grandmother was buried. He bought flowers on the way, white daisies, her favorite. The grave was well kept. Someone had recently placed fresh flowers. A small bronze plaque bore the inscription, "Eleanor Blackwood, 1943-2023, woman of faith, mother at heart, grandmother forever." "Hi, Grandma," he said softly, kneeling to replace the withered flowers with fresh daisies. "Sorry it took me so long to really talk to you." The wind rustled the surrounding trees, creating a soft symphony of leaves. "I messed everything up, as always. But this time the pain is different. It's not the pain of a lost deal or wounded pride. It's the pain of having hurt someone I love." Ethan sat on the grass beside the grave, just as he used to do as a child after some mischief. "She looked at me like you looked at me, Grandma, as if I was capable of being better than I am, and I ruined everything out of cowardice. Your grandmother always said that cowardice and regret are twin brothers." Ethan turned around, startled. It was Harper, standing a few feet behind him, holding a small bouquet of violets. "Harper." He quickly stood up. "I've been coming here every week since she passed," she said, approaching slowly. "Grandma Eleanor was almost a second mother to me when my mom worked away." They stood side by side before the grave, the silence weighing between them like a dense fog. "She talked about you until her last day," Harper murmured. "She said you were lost, but that one day you would find your way home. And I did. Too late, but I found it." Harper knelt to place the violets in the vase. "Why did you lie, Ethan?" she asked, without looking at him. "Because for the first time in 15 years, someone looked at me as a person, not a bank account. Because when you smiled at me, I remembered what it was like to be happy. But you built our friendship on lies. I built it on the fear of losing you before I even really knew you." He knelt beside her. "Everything I felt for you was true, Harper. Every conversation, every moment. The only lie was my name on my birth certificate." She finally looked at him, and he saw that her eyes were red from crying. "You know what hurts me the most?" she said. "It's that I didn't fall for the poor farmhand. I fell for the kind man who carefully painted walls, who ate my pie as if it were the most precious thing in the world, who spoke of his grandmother as if she were still alive. And that man is me. Rich or poor, with a fake name or a true one, this man you met is who I want to be. How can I believe that?" Ethan took his grandmother's handkerchief from his pocket. "Because I'm going to prove it. I'm not leaving Harmony Springs anymore, Harper. I'm going to restore the ranch, the chapel. I'm going to honor every memory my grandmother left here. And your business in New York City? I sold my share of the company yesterday." Marcus almost had a heart attack. Harper stared at him, surprised. "You did what?" "I sold everything. The company, the apartment, the imported car. I want to start over, the right way." "Ethan, have you gone crazy? You threw your whole life away." "I didn't throw it away, I found it." He gently touched her hand. "But it only makes sense if you give me a chance to prove that I've changed." Harper stood up, walking a few steps among the gravestones. "I need time to think," she finally said. "About us, about all of this. As much time as you need, I'll be here." She nodded and began to walk away. Ethan stayed there, watching her disappear among the trees of the cemetery. He turned back to his grandmother's grave and whispered, "First battle lost, Grandma. But the war isn't over yet." The wind rustled the fresh daisies, as if they were a reassuring nod from the only woman who had always believed in him. Ethan woke up on Friday with a determination he hadn't felt in years. If words weren't enough to prove his transformation, then actions would have to speak for him. He put on his work clothes, which he now wore by choice, not by disguise, and walked into town. His first stop was at the hardware store, where he bought paint, brushes, and tools. "Going to renovate the whole ranch?" asked Mr. Henderson, the store owner. "I'll start with the chapel," Ethan replied. "Then we'll see." The comment spread quickly. Around 9 in the morning, when Ethan began clearing the debris from the small chapel at the back of the property, he already had company. First came Mr. Davies, the retiree who had worked on the ranch for decades. "Can I help?" the elderly man simply asked. "Of course, Mr. Davies, but I can't pay." "I don't want payment," the old man interrupted. "I want to see this place beautiful again, like it was when your grandmother got married here." Next came Jeremy, a young bricklayer who had been unemployed for months. "I heard you need help with stone and mortar," he said shyly. "I do, but I can work for food. My wife is pregnant and any help is good." Ethan nodded, moved by the simple generosity of those people. Around noon, a small group had formed around the chapel. Women brought lunch, men carried stones, children collected debris in small buckets. It was a spontaneous community effort. driven by the memory of Grandma Eleanor and curiosity about the grandson who had returned. "Why are you doing this?" Ethan asked Norma, who was overseeing the lunch distribution. "Because your grandmother did a lot for this town, young man. And because sometimes people need to believe that people can truly change." During the afternoon, Ethan noticed a familiar figure watching from afar. Harper was standing in the shade of a large tree, watching the activity at the chapel. When their eyes met, she didn't look away, but she didn't approach either. At the end of the day, when everyone had left, Ethan walked to where she was. "Thank you for not leaving," he simply said. "I was just curious," she replied, but her voice no longer held the harshness of previous days. "And what did you think?" "I think your grandmother would be proud." They walked side by side to the ranch gate, where Harper's bicycle was leaning. "Ethan," she said before getting on, "what do you plan to do when the chapel is finished?" "Offer it to the town, for weddings, baptisms, any ceremony people want. Free of charge." "And after that?" Ethan looked at his grandmother's house with its half-painted walls and windows that needed repair. "Then I'll restore the house. And then I'll think about what to do with the rest of my life." "Alone?" The question hung in the air like a promise and a challenge. Ethan looked at her, seeing something different in her eyes. No longer anger or disappointment, but a cautious curiosity. "I'd prefer not to be alone," he replied honestly. "But I'll respect the time of anyone who needs to decide if they want to forgive me." Harper got on her bicycle but hesitated before pedaling. "Ethan?" "Yes?" "Tomorrow I'll bring apple pie for the workers. It's the least I can do for those who are helping honor Grandma Eleanor's memory." She pedaled away before he could reply, but Ethan smiled for the first time in days. It was a small gesture, but it carried hope. That night, alone in the ranch kitchen, he brewed coffee in the enamel pot and took out his grandmother's handkerchief. "Grandma," he whispered to the embroidered fabric, "I think she's starting to forgive me." Outside, the town of Harmony Springs slept peacefully, but at Blackwood Ranch a man was rediscovering the value of small gestures and second chances. And a few miles away in a little yellow house, a woman found herself thinking that maybe, just maybe, people really could change when they found true reasons to do so. Saturday dawned with intense activity at Blackwood Ranch. Ethan arrived at the chapel early and found more volunteers than he expected. News of the project had spread, and people from neighboring towns showed up to help. Harper arrived around 10, carrying 2 huge baskets. One with apple pies, the other with sandwiches and juices. Ethan watched her distribute food with her usual kindness, but he noticed she avoided being alone with him. "I need to talk to you," Vanessa Fairchild said, suddenly appearing beside Ethan. "We have nothing to talk about." "Oh yes, we do," she smiled maliciously, "especially about your little girlfriend over there." Ethan followed Vanessa's gaze and saw Harper talking with Jeremy, the bricklayer. "What do you want, Vanessa?" "I want to know if you told her the whole truth." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Because I've discovered some interesting things about you two." Ethan's stomach clenched. "What kind of things?" "For example, the fact that your company built the building where Harper's mother worked as a housekeeper." Vanessa paused, savoring the impact of her words. "The same building that collapsed 4 years ago, injuring several people." Ethan felt the world spin. He vaguely remembered the accident, but he had never connected. Harper's mother was working on the day of the collapse, Vanessa continued. She was one of the injured. The injuries worsened the cancer she already had. "How did you find that out?" "Research, dear, and conversations with the right people. The question is, are you going to tell her, or am I?" Ethan looked at Harper, who was laughing at something Jeremy had said. The idea that his company might have contributed even indirectly to her suffering made him nauseous. "What do you want in exchange for your silence?" "The same thing as before. A partnership, 40% of the ranch." "And what if I refuse?" "Then sweet Harper will discover that the man she's falling in love with again is responsible for worsening the illness that killed her mother." Vanessa walked away with a triumphant smile, leaving Ethan paralyzed in the middle of the construction site. During lunch, he could barely eat. He watched Harper serve the people, her natural kindness contrasting with the weight of the revelation he had just received. "Are you okay?" she asked, approaching with a plate. "Harper, I need to tell you something. Now? It's important." They moved away from the group, walking to the shade of the main house. "My company," Ethan began, but was interrupted by shouts coming from the chapel. "Help! Jeremy got hurt!" They ran back and found the bricklayer fallen, groaning in pain. A beam had slipped and hit his leg. "Call a doctor!" Norma shouted. "The clinic is closed today," someone said. "Only in Charlotte." "My car!" Ethan ran to the garage. But when he tried to start it, the engine wouldn't turn over. The battery was dead. "Use mine," Harper said, pointing to a blue Volkswagen Beetle parked nearby. Ethan picked Jeremy up, surprised by the strength he still had after weeks of manual labor. Harper drove along the dusty road while he kept the young man's leg immobilized. "You'll be all right, Jeremy," Ethan murmured. "You have a baby coming, you can't get hurt now." At the hospital, while waiting in the emergency room, Harper watched Ethan pace nervously back and forth. "Why do you care so much?" she asked. "Because he's helping out of kindness, not for money. Because he has a family to support, because I learned that some people are too special to suffer because of us." Harper frowned, as if trying to decipher an enigma in his words. 3 hours later, they learned that Jeremy had fractured his tibia, but would make a full recovery. Ethan insisted on paying all medical expenses. On the way back to Harmony Springs, Harper drove in silence. Ethan knew he needed to tell her about the company, about the building, about everything. But the words refused to come out. "Ethan," she said when they arrived at the ranch, "what were you going to tell me before the accident?" He looked at her, seeing the trust slowly returning to her eyes. How could he destroy that again? That you're the most important person in my life," he said, choosing cowardice once more. Harper smiled shyly, touching his hand before getting out of the car. Ethan stood still, watching her pedal home, carrying the weight of another secret he hadn't had the courage to reveal. Sunday arrived heavy as lead. Ethan had barely slept, tormented by Vanessa's blackmail and the weight of another guarded secret. He got up before sunrise and went to the chapel, where he worked alone until the first volunteers arrived. The work progressed rapidly. The walls were restored, the new roof shone in the sun, and the stained glass windows, bought by Ethan in Charlotte, were being installed. "It'll be ready in a week," Mr. Davies said, admiring the progress. "Grandma Eleanor would be proud," Norma added. Harper arrived around 10, bringing breakfast for everyone. Ethan noticed she stayed around longer now, helping with the cleaning and organizing the tools. "Can I talk to you?" she asked when they were alone for a moment. "Of course. About yesterday, the way you took care of Jeremy." She hesitated. "It reminded me why I fell for you." Ethan's heart raced, but guilt gnawed at him from within. "Harper." "No," she interrupted. "Let me finish. I've thought a lot these past few days. About trust, about forgiveness, about second chances." She approached, gently touching his face. "I want to try again, Ethan. I want to believe that people can change when they find true reasons." Before he could reply, she kissed him. A soft kiss, full of hope and forgiveness. Ethan felt as if the whole world had fallen into place, but at the same time, he knew it was built on quicksand. When they separated, Harper smiled. "Now tell me what you wanted to tell me yesterday." The happiness dissolved like a soap bubble. Ethan looked into her eyes, seeing all the trust he was about to destroy again. My company." Harper's phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was an urgent call from the cafe, a problem with a supplier that only she could resolve. "Sorry, I have to go," she said, quickly kissing his cheek. "Can we talk later?" Ethan nodded, watching her run to her bicycle. Once again, fate had conspired to keep his secret safe. Around 3 in the afternoon, Vanessa appeared at the construction site, far too elegant for the environment. "So, darling, have you decided on my proposal?" "I'm still thinking." "Think fast. Patience isn't my virtue." She looked around. "By the way, what a beautiful project. Harper must be enchanted with her Prince Charming again. Leave Harper out of this." "Impossible. She's at the center of everything, isn't she?" Vanessa smiled maliciously. "I wonder how she'll react when she learns that the building where her mother was injured was constructed with second-rate materials to cut costs. Your management style at the time, wasn't it?" The accusation hit Ethan like a bullseye. He vaguely remembered the decisions to cut costs on that specific project years ago. "You don't have proof of that." "I have reports. I have documents. I have everything, Ethan. She opened her purse and showed a folder, including the name of the subcontracted company you hired, the one that provided cement with less strength than specified. Ethan felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. If this were true, he wasn't just indirectly responsible for Harper's suffering, he was directly to blame. Why are you doing this? Because I can. Because I want this ranch. And because men like you always think they can step on anyone without consequences. What if I accept your proposal? Then everyone's happy. You get the ranch and the girl. I get my share of the profits. And the truth about Harper's mother's death stays buried. Ethan looked at the almost finished chapel, at the volunteers working joyfully, at the future he was building with his own hands. I need more time. Until tomorrow, noon. After that, I'm going to have a very illuminating conversation with Harper. Vanessa walked away, leaving Ethan alone with the weight of an impossible decision. Accept the blackmail and live a lie, or lose Harper forever by telling a truth that would destroy her. That night, alone in the ranch kitchen, he held his grandmother's handkerchief and whispered, "Grandma, teach me how to do the right thing. Teach me to be brave like you were." But the embroidered fabric remained silent, and Ethan knew that this time he would have to find the answers himself. Ethan couldn't sleep. He spent the early hours walking through the house, looking at his grandmother's photos, touching the objects she had left behind. Around 5 in the morning, he sat on the porch where Grandma Eleanor had spent so many afternoons. There, in the same place where his grandmother had found true love, Ethan finally found his answer. He couldn't build happiness on lies and blackmail. He couldn't start a new life carrying the weight of secrets that would poison any future he tried to build. He took out his phone and called his lawyer in New York City. "Maurice, I need you to investigate everything about the collapse of the St. Martin Towers 4 years ago. Everything. Every document, every report, every one of our responsibilities. Ethan, it's 5 in the morning. It's urgent. I need to know the extent of our company's responsibility, and I want you to prepare full compensation for all the victims. All of them." At 7 in the morning, he walked into town. Harper's cafe was closed. She only opened at 8, but he saw a light in the back kitchen. He knocked on the side door. "Ethan?" She appeared in an apron, flour on her hands. "So early. Did something happen? I need to tell you something. Now." Something in the tone of his voice made her stop smiling. She invited him in and brewed coffee while he organized the words in his head. "Harper, do you remember the building where your mother worked when she was injured?" "The St. Martin Towers, of course. Why?" Ethan took a deep breath, holding his grandmother's handkerchief in his pocket like an amulet. "My company built that building." Harper stopped with the cup halfway to her mouth. "What?" "Blackwood Development Group. It was my company. And there's evidence that we used inferior materials to cut costs." The cup slipped from her hands, shattering on the floor. Hot coffee spilled across the tiles like brown tears. You're saying that? I'm saying that I may have contributed to the accident that worsened your mother's illness." Harper leaned on the counter, her face turning pale. "No," she whispered. "I've already ordered a full investigation. If we confirm our responsibility, I will compensate all the families. Yours too." "Get out," she said softly. "Harper." "Get out," she shouted, tears streaming down her face. "Get out of my house. Please let me explain." "Explain what?" She laughed and cried at the same time. "That you not only lied about who you were, but that your greed killed my mother? We don't know yet if—" "Get out!" She threw a spoon at him. "Get out and never come back." Ethan left in silence, carrying the weight of having destroyed the only pure thing left in his life. He walked to the town square and sat on the bench where he had eaten the first piece of Harper's pie. People passed by, some nodding sympathetically, others whispering when they saw him there, visibly shaken. Around 10 in the morning, Norma approached. "Young man, what's with that face?" "I told her everything, Norma. About my company, about her mother's accident." The old woman sat beside him. "And how did she react?" "She kicked me out of her house, and rightly so." "Did you have to tell her?" "I did. I couldn't build love on lies." Norma was silent for a long moment. "Your grandmother always said that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing the right thing even when you are afraid. And now, I've lost her forever. Now you face the consequences like a true man, and hope that her love is stronger than the pain. At noon, as promised, Vanessa appeared in the square. So, what's your decision? I don't accept your deal, Ethan said, rising from the bench. Great. Then I'll tell Harper all about... I already told her. Vanessa's face contorted in surprise and anger. You told her? I told her everything. About the company, about the building, about my responsibility in the accident. You don't need your blackmail anymore. But you lost her. I lost her, Ethan smiled sadly. But I gained something more important. What? My dignity back. Vanessa stared at him with pure hatred, realizing she had completely lost control of the situation. Ethan walked away, heading back to the ranch. For the first time in weeks, he felt truly free. He had lost the love of his life, but he had found his soul again. And maybe, just maybe, that was the first step to deserving a second chance. A week passed like a decade. Ethan didn't see Harper once. The cafe remained closed, and Norma said she had traveled to Charlotte to stay with a cousin and think things over. Even so, he continued working on the chapel. Every hammer blow, every tightened screw was a way to honor the promise he had made to his grandmother's memory. Volunteers still came, but in smaller numbers. The news of Ethan's confession had spread, dividing opinions in town. On Thursday, his lawyer called with the final report. Ethan, we confirmed it. Your company used adulterated cement on that project. The supplier cut costs without notifying, but you were responsible for the oversight. How much will it cost to compensate all the victims? Around $8 million. Do it. All of them. And start with Maria Santos's family. The cafe owner's mother? That's right. And Maurice. I want it to be double the calculated amount. It's not about money, it's about responsibility. On Friday, the chapel was finally ready. The white walls shone in the sun, the colorful stained glass windows created rainbows on the stone floor, and a small, simple altar occupied the front of the sacred space. Ethan was alone, placing fresh flowers on the altar, when he heard footsteps at the entrance. It's beautiful. He turned and saw Harper standing in the doorway. She was thinner, with deep circles under her eyes, but her eyes no longer held the anger of the previous week. Harper. He slowly stood up. May I come in? Of course, it's for everyone now. She walked slowly through the small space, touching the walls, observing the stained glass. Mom would have loved this place, she finally said. Harper, about what happened to her. I received your lawyer's call? She interrupted him. About the compensation. It's the least I can do. I don't want the money. Ethan stared at her, surprised. What do you mean? I don't want your money. She turned to him. I want you to donate everything to the hospital where Mom was treated, to improve cancer treatment for people who can't afford it. Harper, and I want you to explain one thing to me, she approached. Why did you tell me the truth? Knowing you would lose me? Ethan hesitated, then took his grandmother's handkerchief from his pocket. Because of her, and because of you. Because I realized I can't build happiness on the pain of other people. Even knowing I would hate you? Even knowing I would lose the only person who made me remember who I really am. Harper took the handkerchief from his hands, looking at the embroidered initials. Your grandmother once told me that this handkerchief was a wedding gift from her mother, that she kept it her whole life to give to her grandson when he found true love. She never told me that, because you never stayed long enough to hear her stories. Harper returned the handkerchief, but her hands remained touching his. Ethan, I hated you this week. With all the strength I had. But I also understood one thing. What? That if you were the same person as before, you never would have told me the truth. You never would have given up millions to do what's right. And does that change anything? It changes everything. She smiled for the first time in days. Because it means you truly transformed. And people who have the courage to truly change deserve forgiveness. Are you forgiving me? I'm learning to forgive. Mom always said that forgiveness isn't forgetting what happened. It's choosing not to let the pain of the past destroy the possibilities of the future. Ethan felt tears in his eyes. Harper, I love you. Not as the businessman I was, but as the man you helped me become. And I love you too. Not despite your mistakes, but because you had the courage to own them and try to fix them. They kissed there, In the restored chapel, under the colorful light of the stained glass, sealing not only their love, but the rebirth of two people who learned that true transformation only happens when we choose courage over convenience. When they separated, Harper held his face between her hands. And now, what are we going to do with the rest of our lives? Ethan smiled, looking around the chapel where his grandmother had married decades earlier. Now we're going to build something new, together, with truth from day one. Outside, Harmony Springs continued its simple routine, but in the restored chapel at Blackwood Ranch, two wounded souls began to heal, proving that true love grows slowly, like a good plant. But when it has deep roots, it can withstand any storm. 6 months later, Blackwood Ranch was unrecognizable. The colonial house shone with fresh paint. The wooden windows had been restored, and the orchard bloomed as it did in his grandmother's time. But the biggest transformation was at the back of the property, where a new building rose beside the chapel, the Community Roots Kitchen. "Done," announced Jeremy, who had become the construction foreman after fully recovering from his fracture. "The community kitchen is working perfectly." Ethan smiled, observing the activity on site. Norma was teaching 3 young people how to make traditional cheese biscuits. 2 women from neighboring towns showed their recipes for candied sweets. In the outdoor area, a small market offered local products: honey, cheeses, organic vegetables, and of course Harper's famous apple pies. "I can't believe it worked," Harper said, appearing beside him with an apron covered in flour. "Did you doubt it?" "For the first few months, yes," she laughed. "I thought no one would want to come learn old recipes on a lost ranch in the middle of nowhere. And now we have a waiting list for the courses." She pointed to a group of tourists photographing the chapel. "And orders coming in all the way from Charlotte." The project had grown organically. What started as Ethan's way to honor his grandmother's memory transformed into a center for cultural preservation and local development. The women of the region taught traditional culinary techniques. The men offered sustainable agriculture courses, and the young people learned rural entrepreneurship. "Ethan!" Norma shouted from the kitchen. "Come here and try this coconut truffle." He obeyed, tasting the sweet that melted in his mouth. "Approved by Great-Grandma's recipe?" the old woman asked. "Absolutely approved. Grandma Eleanor would be proud." "She is proud," Norma smiled. "I feel her around here sometimes, especially when the wind rustles the blueberry bushes." Around 5 in the afternoon, when the last visitors left, Ethan and Harper walked to the porch of the main house. It was their daily ritual, sitting there at the end of the day, drinking coffee and planning the future. "A letter from the hospital arrived today," Harper said, taking an envelope from her bag. "Good news?" "Great. With the donation you made, they were able to fully equip the oncology wing. They'll be able to treat 300 more people per month." Ethan nodded, satisfied. The compensation money had transformed into hope for hundreds of families. "And you? Don't you miss the bustling life of a businessman?" Harper asked, as she sometimes did. "I miss the adrenaline of business," he replied honestly. "But I prefer the adrenaline of seeing a century-old recipe being taught to a new generation." "And the imported cars?" "I prefer my old pickup truck that takes vegetables to the market." "And the luxury apartment?" "I prefer waking up to birdsong instead of car horns." Harper snuggled into his arm, watching the sun set behind the mountains. "Do you know what the biggest change in you was?" she said. "What?" "Before, you measured success in numbers. Now you measure it in smiles." It was true. Ethan had discovered that true wealth wasn't in bank accounts, but in Norma teaching a granddaughter to make a special kind of sweet bread. In Jeremy building a future for his newborn son. In young people from the town learning that they could prosper without abandoning their roots. "Harper," he said, taking something from his pocket. It was his grandmother's handkerchief, but now accompanied by a small, simple ring made of white gold with a discreet stone. "Ethan," she sighed, "I know it's early. I know we're still learning to trust each other completely. But I want to spend the rest of my life proving that true love can grow after storms." Harper held the ring with trembling hands, tears in her eyes. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes to the ring, to marriage, to growing old together on this porch." She smiled through her tears. "And it's a yes to building a family that knows happiness is priceless." They kissed as the sun finished setting, painting the sky in golden hues that perfectly matched the sweet taste of the life they had chosen to build together. 3 months later, on a sunny Saturday morning, the small chapel at Blackwood Ranch hosted its first wedding. Ethan, in a simple but elegant suit, waited at the altar decorated with flowers from his own orchard. Harper entered in a white dress embroidered by the women of the Collaborative Center, carrying a bouquet of blueberries, the same fruit that appeared in his photo with his grandmother. Norma cried throughout the ceremony. Jeremy played the guitar. The town's children threw rose petals they themselves had planted. And when the minister asked if Ethan accepted Harper as his wife, he replied, looking directly into her eyes, "I do. To honor, to protect, to grow together, and to prove every day that people can change when they find true reasons to do so." At the reception that followed, held in the courtyard of the Collaborative Center, Harper made a toast. "Here we don't just sell food," she said, raising a glass of blueberry juice. "We sell memory, and the courage to be who we are without needing to hide." Ethan smiled, seeing all the faces around him that had become family. Norma, Jeremy and his wife with their baby in arms, the cooking instructors, the young apprentices, the tourists who had become friends. There, on the land where he was born and to where he had returned lost, Ethan finally understood what his grandmother had always known, that the deepest roots grow in the soil of truth, watered with unconditional love, and protected by the courage to always choose what is right. And as the wind rustled the blueberry bushes that night, everyone swore they heard a soft, familiar laugh, as if Grandma Eleanor was applauding from heaven, proud of the grandson who had finally learned that coming home isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of wisdom. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment where you're watching from. This helps a lot to keep bringing stories like this to you.